AM 1460, the new WXBR. Peter Czymbor here with you. For the past 51 years, my next guest has been the frontman for probably the most influential American rock and roll band of all time, and if there's any indication that he's not slowing down, it's exhibited this weekend when he plays not one, but two shows, Saturday afternoon at the Cape Cod Melody Tent in Hyannis, and Saturday evening at the South Shore Music Circus in Cohasset. Joining me right now via the telephone from the Beach Boys, Mike Love. Mike, thanks for joining us here on the program today.
Well, thanks for having me on good old WXBR.
Mike, how often do the Beach Boys do two shows in one day? How often do bands do two shows in one day who have been playing for 51 plus years?
Well, I don't know of any, but but we do. In fact, I tease some of the guys if they can't do two shows, and they should quit. Because what happens when you first start out, you do like 4 sets a night, you know. Some places they have you do 5 sets a night, and then you pack up and you drive a couple hundred miles to the next show. So I think a lot of people lose sight of how they started, and the neat thing about it is we're able to cover a lot of ground in one weekend. You know, with this, we're going to be in Hampton Beach, by the way, on Friday, and then Saturday afternoon Hyannis, Saturday evening Cohasset. So we're getting our share of New England, that's for sure.
So I said 2 area shows this weekend, but counting Hampton Beach and New Hampshire, really 3 area shows this weekend.
Exactly.
When you guys perform as often as you do, sometimes doing multiple shows within one day, considering how difficult it is, I'd have to imagine, to perform certain Beach Boys vocals, particularly the high-pitched songs, does it ever wear on you or other members of the bands vocally?
Well, actually, you know, doing vocals, the vocal cords is kind of similar to musculature. Like if you exercise, you know, you're going to stay fit. And I find that the more singing we do, as long as other parts of your life, you're getting enough rest and you don't do things like drinking too much or smoking or whatever you might do that could harm the voice, as long as you're living a healthy lifestyle, getting adequate rest, and in my case, I meditate, transcendental meditation, which I learned in December of '67 from Maharishi, and I've been doing it every day since then. Well, the value of the lifestyle is important. The quality of your lifestyle is important, but the doing of the vocals is no problem as long as you're rested and you know you've been living a sane lifestyle. Then you know, it's when you get overly tired, or maybe you had some late nights and early mornings back to back, then you can get run down, and then it becomes a real effort. That's when you start getting sick and stuff. But we're pretty what do you call it, observant about those things. We know by trial and error what you can and can't do, and so we find that we get stronger vocally as we go. You know.
Once again, we're chatting with Mike Love of the Beach Boys here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. Considering that the Beach Boys have been in existence for 50-plus years at this point, what is the age range of people who are spectators at your shows?
Well, there are original fans that are maybe in their 70s, and then there's their children, their grandchildren. I mean, we have all ages. You have, you know, young people just becoming aware of music, and you know, it's kind of like the begats in the Bible. You know, the Beach Boys, the Beatles, and the Rolling Stones begat the Who and the whoever, you know, Led Zeppelin, et cetera, et cetera. So then you've got, you know, all the great music from the 60s, including Motown, the Beatles, Beach Boys, et cetera. And so you've got a tremendous amount of musical depth there that we grew up with on radio. And so nowadays, you know, you see multiple generations of fans. I mean, particularly out in Hyannis, I can remember seeing a group of mothers with their children coming out every year. We've been there. I mean, little children, and then now they're, you know, preteens and so on like that. So we have, it's kind of like almost a summer. What do you call it? A summer, every summer get together for us and for them. So it's really a neat thing to see. Families in all ages and children singing songs that were they were conceived long before they were.
We're talking with Mike Love of the Beach Boys here on AM 1460, the new WXBR, playing the Cape Cod Melody Tent in Hyannis this Saturday afternoon and the South Shore Music Circus in Cohasset Saturday evening. Mike, you just mentioned something that strikes me as very cool. Last year, the Beach Boys reunited for their 50th anniversary tour, and you guys played a lot of big venues around here. You played Bank Harbor Pavilion and the TD Garden, home of the Boston Celtics and Boston Bruins and whatnot, but you guys have intermittently played a lot of smaller venues over the years, such as the Melody Tent and the Music Circus, which you'll play this weekend, and as a result of that, you guys have sort of had more of a personal connection with some of your fans. You just mentioned a group of people that you've seen year in, year out for several years in Hyannis. What's the difference between playing the big arenas and the intimate venues, and what do you enjoy more?
Intimacy, I think. On the smaller venues, particularly the theaters and around, you have eye contact with people. You actually recognize people from the years before, and I think everybody can see and everybody can hear. It's more of a personal interaction and an intimate experience musically, and just you have somewhat of a relationship with people over the years in many cases, and it's a festive atmosphere. In the larger places, they're spectacular and everything, and great production values and so on like that. But beyond the first few rows, there's not much connection going on. I mean, it is an event. It is spectacular and all that, and I'm not knocking it, but I enjoy places large and small for the various dimensions and reasons they have. Obviously, large venues with thousands of people is spectacular and a lot of fun for us, and it makes us feel great that we can still attract those kinds of audiences. But there's something to be said about the quality of being in a room where the experience is more intimate, and the sound, everybody can see and hear and experience. It's like a party together.
Now, last year when the Beach Boys toured as part of the Beach Boys' 50th anniversary tour, the lineup of the Beach Boys consisted of you, Bruce Johnson, who will be with you this weekend, and also consisted of original members Brian Wilson, Al Jardine, and David Marks. That tour concluded, and as was the case prior to that tour, band members went their separate way. Recently, it was announced that Brian Wilson, Al Jardine, and David Marks will be playing some shows together, including a show in the Boston area in October. What are your thoughts on those guys getting together to play, not under the Beach Boys name, because you play under the Beach Boys name?
Well, I mean, Brian has an excellent band. He really does. I mean, it's a pretty big band. It's almost like an orchestra-sized thing. And he and Alan know each other since high school days. And David Marks, he's a damn good guitar player. But they're going and doing what they do, and we're doing things the way we do it. Oftentimes in the smaller venues. But see, when you have such a large band and when you have such big production, it limits you in terms of what size venues you can do and where you can go. I like doing it the way we do it, and have done it for many, many years. So, but we wish them well, and they have, Brian has an excellent band, and there's no doubt they'll do a fine job.
What is your relationship with those guys, both professionally and personally?
Well, personally, my cousin Brian and I, we've written some great songs together over the years. And he and I don't think there's any issue there whatsoever. I mean, there are other issues that have to do with, that have been invented by other people and stuff like that. But as far as personal relationship with Brian, he and I always get along, have always gotten along.
Once again, we're chatting with Mike Love here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. You mentioned that you and your cousin Brian have written a plethora of fantastic songs over the years. What is your favorite Beach Boys song that you've ever written or performed?
That's a hard one because, Good Vibrations comes to mind because it was avant-garde in the 60s, and it still is. I think I came up with I'm picking up good vibrations. She's giving me the excitations. and wrote all the words, and Brian came up with a great track and a vocal arrangement and stuff. So that was, I'd say, creatively one of the high points. But then Kokomo is one of the biggest sing-along songs we have. That was written with John Phillips and Terry Melcher, who produced it, and I wrote I wrote again the chorus, Aruba, Jamaica, ooh, I want to take you, and then I wrote all the words for the second verse. Most of the words for the first verse was written by John Phillips, and beautiful melody. I came up with the chorus, the groove part, and so so those two come to mind. But California Girls is not chopped liver. I wrote all the words to that, and that's a fantastic song. There's so many good ones, it's hard to say.
So you can't answer for me what your favorite Beach Boys song of all time is. Why don't I ask you this? What's your least favorite Beach Boys song of all time that is buried in the catalog that you will never perform?
No, I don't know about that. I don't think we, if we didn't like the songs as much as you were indicating, we probably wouldn't have recorded them. But there's some songs that we find that don't go over as well in personal appearances, for whatever reason. But what we find in the archives, we have a box set coming out called Made in California very shortly. In fact, it might even be out on Amazon or whatever right now, or at least you can take orders for it. But it's like 6 CDs. Some of its stuff is unreleased. One of the songs that's unreleased that we recorded years ago, like 1979 or something, everybody's on it, it's called Going to the Beach. And we're actually doing that song in our show these days. So we're doing a new song for all intents and purposes, never been heard before until this summer with our audiences, Going to the Beach into Surfing USA. It's perfect. They work so well together.
Once again, we're chatting with Mike Love here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. Mike Love of the Beach Boys in town this weekend. Mike, when you have a catalog with as many fantastic songs as deep as the Beach Boys do, how do you go about putting a set list together for your shows? Do people ever say, man, you left that song out, or anything like that? Is there anything you ever omit and you think to yourself later, why'd I do that?
Well, no, I know why we would leave things out. It has to do with how much time we're allotted at the particular venues by the promoter or the venue itself. For instance, we could do 3-hour-long shows every night and satisfy practically every person's taste for every era of the Beach Boys music and so on like that. But you're not often given that type of time. The most you might get is in the tents, in the theaters and around, like we're going to do this weekend. We're probably given 2 sets, a first part of the show and a second part of the show. And the most we could hope to do is probably, with that intermission of 20 minutes, probably a 2-hour show. So that means an hour and 40 minutes of music. So then it comes down to what hits are you going to do? Well, obviously we're going to do all the hits, like Good Vibrations and California Girls and Help Me Rhonda and Barbara Ann and Surfing USA and I Get Around and Fun, Fun, Fun. And then there's some that were hits, but not quite as big a hits, like Do It Again and Be True to Your School and so on like that. And I like to start out getting retro, like Do It Again and a few other surfing songs into Surfing Safari, and then like to do our car songs and so on like that. So Little Do Scoop and 409 and Shut Down and I Get Around and so on like that. So we find that certain songs get the audience more engaged. We go back into time a little bit, and then we broaden it out a little bit, doing the Pet Sounds album or Kokomo's. Was 22 years after Good Vibrations went to number 1 in 1966. Kokomo went to number 1 in 1988, and that is said to be our largest selling single ever. So, and it's a huge sing-along, but so is Help Me Rhonda. So there are some songs that you would be hard-pressed not to do, and why would you not want to do them? People love them so much, and we like them a lot because we created them, So it feels good for us to have those songs so wonderfully accepted, today, even though they were recorded many years ago, and multiple generations like them. So, but then from there, it's a question of, okay, what are we going to do artistically that might satisfy the hardcore fan and that we might enjoy doing as well. So we try to do some of those things as well.
Once again, we're chatting with Mike Love here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. It's got to make you feel pretty good that you had hits in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and then I remember you had an entirely new audience in the 90s thanks to your appearances on Full House and whatnot. That's
right. John Stamos, our Uncle Jesse on Full House, he's going to be 50 years old August 19th, and he's going to have a party that he's invited us all to on the 26th, a week after in L.A. And he was so nice, he actually changed his birthday party, to a week later so that we could come to it. He's been a longtime friend and fan, and we've been a friend and fan of his too. And he's had us on, as you mentioned, Full House a few times. In fact, there's one time that was the highest rated Full House show when we were on it. So, and we get recognized by kids, like that are people who are no longer children, but they've been watching Full House pretty much all their lives, and so it's been a really nice relationship. And when he can, John will come out and play drums with us and sing, and we'll back him up on Forever, which he did the other night on the Jimmy Fallon show and got something like 30 million views or something.
I watched it a few times on YouTube already.
Yeah.
We're chatting with Mike Love here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. Mike, one of the biggest hits the Beach Boys ever had, which we've mentioned a few times, is the song California Girls. I always found this factoid to be interesting. California Girls is the Beach Boys' #1 international hit of all time, yet the last lyrics in the song are, "I can't wait to get back in the States to the cutest girls in the world." How do foreign audiences respond to that song, and particularly that lyric, when you're basically saying American girls are better looking than you?
No, I don't think we said that we're better looking.
Okay.
Cutest girls in the world applies to all the girls around the world, and wish they all could be California girls. That's the whole concept about it. And besides that, the song itself, whether they speak English or not, it's just so evocative and so California, therefore so U.S. The Beach Boys, with Surfin' USA and California Girls. We do California Dreamin' in our show too, with Mamas and Papas. We did our version of it, and so I think the Beach Boys just stand for America, and by way of California, and it resonates all over the world. And so we're trying to be inclusive, although a lot of people misunderstand the intentions of that song.
Well, I'm glad that you could explain it to me here on the program today. Mike, before I let you go, we talked earlier about the Brian Wilson, Al Jardine, David Marks tour, which is coming to Boston in a few months. Is there ever a chance that you think that reunion will happen again before the Beach Boy story is through?
Well, it depends. I mean, see, in the past, we did, which was really nice, was an album together. But Brian wanted to do some songs that he and I had spoken about, and it really never got to happen. So were we to do something again, I would like to sit with Brian and write songs from scratch with him. And if that were to happen, then I'd say it'd be worthwhile to get together again.
But it is something you're open to, it seems.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it. It just has to be, it's that kind of tour, like I said, is so expensive and such production values and stuff that it really does, you really do need to give it a bit of a rest.
Well, once again, we've been chatting with Mike Love here on AM 1460, the new WXBR, playing 2 area shows this Saturday at the Cape Cod Melody Tent in Hyannis, South Shore Music Circus in Cohasset Saturday evening. Friday night, they'll be at Hampton Beach Casino in Hampton Beach, New Hampshire. Mike, box set will be out soon. The 50th anniversary DVD is fantastic. I thank you so much for joining me here on the program today. Any final words for our listeners before I let you go?
No, just thanks for being Beach Boys fans and listening to us, and thank you on AM 1460 for getting the word out once again.
That's Mike Love of the Beach Boys here with you on AM 1460, the new WXBR. We're going to step aside for a quick break. Mike Pavitt joins us from the WXBR newsroom after this.